Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. The necessity of writing transactions that take effect later on. This ayat is the longest in the glorious Qur'an. Imam Abu Jafar bin Jarir recorded that Sayyid bin al-Musayyab said that he was told that the ayat most recently revealed from above the throne, the last ayat to be revealed in the Quran, was the ayat about debts. Allah's statement, O you who believe, when you contract a debt for a fixed period, write it down, directs Allah's believing servants to record their business transactions when their term is delayed, to preserve the terms and timing of these transactions and the memory of witnesses, as mentioned at the end of the ayat. That is more just with Allah, more solid as evidence, and more convenient to prevent doubts among yourselves. The two Sahihs recorded that Ibn Abbas said, Allah's Messenger came to Al Madinah while the people were in the habit of paying in advance for fruits to be delivered within 1 or 2 years. The Messenger of Allah said, whoever pays money in advance for dates to be delivered later should pay it for non-specified measure and weight of the dates for a specified date. Allah's statement, write it down, is a command from Him to record such transactions to endorse and preserve their terms. Ibn Jurayj said, whoever borrowed should write the terms and whoever brought should have witnesses. Abu Sa'id al-Shabi, al-Rabi bin Anas, al-Hassan, Ibn Jurayj and Ibn Zayd said that recording such transactions was necessary before but was then abrogated by Allah's statement. Then if one of you entrust the other, let the one who is entrusted discharge his trust faithfully. Allah's statement, let a scribe write it down in a justice between you and in truth. Therefore, the scribe is not allowed to cheat any party of the contract and is to only record what the parties of the contract agreed to without addition or deletion. Allah's statement, let not the scribe refuse to write as Allah has taught him, so let him write, means those who know how to write should not refrain from writing transactions contracts when asked to do so. Further, let writing such contracts be a type of charity from the scribe for those who are not lettered, just as Allah taught him what he knew not. Therefore, let him write just as the Hadith stated. It is a type of charity to help a worker and to do something for a feeble person. In another Hadith, the Prophet said, whoever kept knowledgeable to himself will be restrained by a bridal maid of fire on the day of resurrection. Mujahid and Atta said that if asked to do so, the scribe is required to record. Allah's statement, let him the debtor who incurs the liability dictate, and he must have taqwa of Allah his Lord, indicates that the debtor should dictate to the scribe what he owes, so let him fear Allah and diminish not everything of what he owes, meaning not hide any portion of what he owes. But if the debtor is of poor understanding and is not allowed to decide on such matters because he used to waste money, for instance, or weak, such as being too young or insane, or is unable to dictate for himself because of a disease or ignorance about such matters, then let his guardian dictate in justice. Witnesses should attend the dictation of contracts. Allah said, and get two witnesses out of your own men, requiring witnesses to attend the dictation of contracts to further preserve the contents, and if there are not two men available, then a man and two women. This requirement is only for contracts that directly or indirectly involve money. Allah requires that two women take the place of one man as witness because of the woman's shortcomings as the Prophet described. Muslim recorded in his Sahih that Abu Huraira said that the Messenger of Allah said, O woman, give away charity and ask for forgiveness. For I saw that you comprise the majority of the people of the fire. One eloquent woman said, O Messenger of Allah, why do we compromise the majority of people of fire? He said, you curse a lot and you do not appreciate your mate. I have never seen those who have shortcoming in mind and religion controlling those who have sound minds other than you. She said, O Messenger of Allah, what is this shortcoming in mind and religion? He said, as for the shortcoming in her mind, the testimony of two women equals the testimony of one man, and this is the shortcoming in the mind. As for the shortcoming in the religion, woman remains for nights at a time when she does not pray and breaks the fast in Ramadan. Allah's statements such as you agree for witnesses requires competency in the witnesses. Further, Allah's statement so that if one of them errs refer to the two women witnesses whenever one of them forgets a part of the testimony the other can remind her, meaning the other woman's testimony meant the shortcoming of forgetfulness in the first woman. Allah's statement, and the witnesses should not refuse when they are called, means when people are called to be witnesses, they should agree as Qatada and Ar-Rabi bin Anas stated. Similarly, Allah said, let not the scribe refuse to write as Allah has taught him, so let him write. Some say that this ayat indicates that agreeing to become a witness is fard kifaya, required on at least a part of the Muslim ummah. However, the majority of the scholars say that the ayat and the witnesses should not refuse when they are called is referring to testifying to what the witnesses actually witnessed, thus befitting their description of being witnesses. Therefore, when the witness is called to testify to what he witnessed, he is required to give testimony unless this obligation was already fulfilled, in which case such testimony becomes farde kafaya. Mujahid and Abu Mijaz said, if you are called to be a witness, then you have the choice to agree. If you witnessed and were called to testify, then come forward. It was reported that Ibn Abbas and Al Hassan al Basri said that the obligation includes both cases, agreeing to be witness and testifying to what one witnessed. Allah's statement, you should not become weary to write it your contract, whether it be small or large, for its fixed term, perfects this direction from Allah by commanding that the debt be returned, whether the amount is large or small. Allah said, you should not become weary, meaning do not be discouraged against writing transactions and their terms, whether the amount involved is large or small. Allah's statement that is more just with Allah, more solid as evidence, and more convenient to prevent doubts among yourselves, means writing transactions that will be fulfilled at a later date is more just with Allah, meaning better and more convenient in order to preserve the terms of the contract. Therefore, recording such agreements helps the witnesses when they see their handwriting or signatures later on and thus remember what they witnessed. For it is possible that the witnesses might forget what they witnessed, and more convenient to prevent doubts among yourselves, meaning this helps repel any doubt. since if you need to refer to the contract that you wrote and the doubt will end. Allah's statement, safe when it is a present trait which you carry out on the spot among themselves, then there is no sign on you if you do not write it down. Indicates that if the transaction will be fulfilled immediately, then there is no harm if it is not recorded. As for the requiring witnesses to be present in trading transactions, Allah said, but take witnesses whenever you make a commercial contract. However, this command was abrogated by, then if one of you entrusts the other, let the one who is entrusted discharge his trust faithfully. Or it could be that having witnesses in such cases is only recommended and not obligatory, as evident from the hadith that Kuzaima bin Tawbid al-Ansari narrated, which Imam Ahmad collected. Umarah bin Khuzaimah al-Ansari said that his uncle, who was among the Prophet's companions, told him that the Prophet was making a deal for a horse with the Bedouin man. The Prophet asked the Bedouin to follow him so that he could pay him the price of the house. The Prophet went ahead of the Bedouin. The Bedouin met several men who tried to buy his horse, not knowing if the Prophet was actually determined to buy it. Some people offered more money for the horse than the Prophet had. The Bedouin man said to the Prophet, if you want to buy this horse, then buy it, or I will sell it to someone else. When he heard the Bedouin man's word, the Prophet stood up and said, have I not bought that horse from you? The Bedouin said, by Allah, I have not sold it to you. The Prophet said, rather, I did buy it from you. The people gathered around the Prophet and the Bedouin while they were disputing, and the Bedouin said, bring forth a witness who testifies that I sold you the horse. Meanwhile, the Muslims who came said to the Bedouin, woe to you, the Prophet only says the truth. When Huzaimah bin Thabit came and heard the dispute between the Prophet and the Bedouin, who was saying, bring forth a witness who testifies that I sold you the house. Huzaimah said, I bear witness that you sold him the house. The Prophet said to Huzaimah, what is the basis of your testimony? Huzaimah said that I entrusted you, O Messenger of Allah. Therefore, the messenger made Huzaimah's testimony equal to the testimony of two men. This was also recorded by Abu Dawud and An-Nasai. Allah's statement, let neither scribe nor witness suffer or cause any harm, also indicates that the scribe and the witness must not cause any harm, such as when the scribe writes other than what he is being dictated, or the witness testifies to other than what he heard or conceals his testimony. This is the explanation of Al-Hasan and Qatada, Allah's statement, but if you do such harm, it would be wickedness in you. Means if you defy what you were commanded, not commit what you were prohibited, then it is because of the sign that resides and remains with you, sign that you never release or rid yourselves from. Allah's statement, so have taqwa of Allah, means fear Him, remember His watch over you, implement His command and avoid what He prohibited. And Allah teaches you. Similarly, Allah said, O you who believe, if you have taqwa of Allah, He will grant you Furqan, a criterion to judge between right and wrong. And who you believe, have taqwa of Allah and believe in His Messenger, He will give you a double portion of His mercy, and He will give you a light by which you shall walk. Allah said, and Allah is the all-knower of everything, stating that Allah has perfect knowledge in all matters. and in their benefits or repercussions, and nothing escapes his perfect watch, for his knowledge encompasses everything in existence. And if you are on a journey and cannot find a scribe, then let there be a pledge taken, mortgaging. Then, if one of you entrust the other, let the one who is entrusted discharge his trust, and let him have taqwa of Allah, his Lord. And conceal not the evidence, for he who hides it, surely his heart is sinful, and Allah is all knower of what you do. What is the mortgaging mentioned in the ayat? Allah said, and if you are on a journey, meaning traveling, and some of you borrowed some money to be paid at a later date, and cannot find a scribe who would record the debt for you. Ibn Abbas said, and even if they find a scribe, but did not find paper, ink, or pen, then let there be a pledge taken, mortgaging, given to the creditor in lieu of writing the transaction. The two Sahihs recorded that Anas said that the Messenger of Allah died while his child was mortgaged with a Jew in return for 30 wasq, approximately 180 kg of barley, which the Prophet brought on credit as provisions to his household. In another narration, the hadith stated that this Jew was among the Jews of Al Madinah. Allah said, then if one of you entrusts the other, let the one who is entrusted discharge his trust faithfully. Ibn Abi Hatim recorded with a sound chain of narration that Abu Sayyid al Khudri said, this ayat abrogated what came before it, that which required recording the transaction and having witnesses present. Ash-Shabi said, if you trust each other, then there is no harm if you do not write the loan or have witnesses present. Allah's statement, and let him have taqwa of Allah, means the debtor. Imam Ahmad and the Sunan recorded the Qatada said that Al-Hasan said that Samruha said that the Messenger of Allah said, the hand of the debtor will carry the burden of what it took until it gives it back. Allah's statement, and conceal not the evidence, means do not hide it or refuse to announce it. Ibn Abbas and other scholars said, false testimony is one of the worst of the major and sins, and such is the case with hiding the true testimony. This is why Allah said, for he who hides it, surely his heart is sinful. As-Suddi commented, meaning he is a sinner in his heart. There is similar to Allah's statement, we shall not hide testimony of Allah, for then indeed we should be one of the sinful. Allah said, O you who believe, stand out firmly for justice as witnesses to Allah, even though it be against yourselves or your parents or your kin, be he rich or poor. Allah is a better protector to both than you. So follow not the lust of your hearts, lest you avoid justice, and if you distort your witness or refuse to give it, verily Allah is ever well acquainted with what you do. And in this ayat he said, and conceal not the evidence, for he who hides it, surely his heart is sinful, and Allah is all knower of what you do. To Allah belongs all that is in the heavens and all that is on the earth, and whether you disclose what is in yourselves or conceal it, Allah will call you to account for it. Then he forgives whom he wills and punishes whom he wills, and Allah is able to do all things.